All right, ladies and gentlemen, fellow decoders around the world, wherever you may be, my name is Logan, your tour guide, and this is Decode Your Reality, and today we're going to be breaking down and decoding some biblical alchemy. Of course, alchemy to me is like, syncretism, but we're going to show some alchemy in here, how we can take letters, numbers, and symbols and compare those against the elements on the periodic table in alchemy and molar masses and all the scientific names, etc., etc. And, this book, I'm so fascinated by it. I was raised with this book, but I've done so many decodes on it, showing you that this is a scripture playing out. Don't want to play anymore? Well, a lot of you don't. All right. And I'm going to show you some really interesting things about this. Let's get going. This is going to be a series because I already have part 2 that I'm working on. So this will be, the very first foundation of biblical alchemy. So welcome out, everybody. Appreciate each and every one of you. Big shout out to all you Patreon members. Thank you so very much for supporting this great research. If you're not on Patreon, go check it out. You can go on there for free. I do drop material that I don't drop out anywhere else. So you do get some free material. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, let's start with some numerology, shall we? With the spoken word and using Chaldean numerology. At this point, I can use any of the ciphers and you can find the connections. You just got to use the methodology, right? But Chaldean being so closely tied to the source code, and you can see that the Holy Bible, which is kind of the grandiose name for it, is 43. That's going to reduce down to a number 7 chakras, 7 is the 4th prime number, 4 blood types, right? You can continue to go with this, but you can see how it's God's kingdom, right? So you're in it. You're in God's kingdom, right? This is what this is kind of alluding to here. And we're playing out the light game. That's what this book means. Holy is 16, Bible is 13, light is 16, game is 13. This is a game. We're entertainment. You're in a movie. And there's a very good possibility that you're being controlled remotely. Like when you grab onto the joystick and you play a video game, that's exactly what Spirit's doing for you. Like maybe one of the stars in the canopy is controlling you remotely. Maybe. But it's the light game. Light slowed down into physical matter, and now you're a character, an avatar. This is the Alice falling down into the hole. Alice being 13, tied to Bible, right? Following down and chasing the rabbit, which means fertility. But it's also tied to hell. See, it's the hell game. Because you could see how hell is 16, fire is 16, light and holy, they're all 16. We're playing out the game of hell. Got to make lemonade out of it. That's what numerology says here, is that you're playing out the game of hell. And it can be heavenly, of course, yes. But there's suffering that goes on here. And when you get suffering that comes into your life, probably not a fan of that. So moving a little bit forward, getting into some mathematics, combining with numerology, the science of numbers. 43 tied to the Holy Bible. Is that a big deal? Absolutely. It's a prime number. You could use the prime cipher. It is phenomenal to use. Got to just use that one, though, and then connect the dots. 43 being the 14th prime number. And just like that, you have a connection to the most generalized word in the English language for, the one that's running this. It's God, the G-O-D. The G-O-D being the 14. The word time equals 14. The word Satan equals 14. Okay? Now, you seeing the connections here, folks? Do you think there's any difference? Especially when you reference Isaiah 45 verses 7, where God says, I make peace and create evil. Well, what do you think evil is? Satan. So now you have kind of connecting point where it's really undeniable unless you just want to completely refute Isaiah 45 verses 7, which is in the Old Testament. But nonetheless, let's get into some alchemy with numerology, 43 being the big marker for the Holy Bible, the 43rd element on the periodic table, technetium. And this is where it gets so interesting, because technetium, it means artificial, meaning made by man, but of course mankind's being used, but nonetheless, it means artificial. It means made by the hands of man, written by the hands of man, obviously. A lot of you think that the Bible was fudged, changed, yada, yada, yada. Whatever the case may be, again, I stand on the foundation mankind's not in control of this reality. And technetium is from the Greek word technetos. And now you have 39. And you know how many books of the Old Testament? 39. Starting the book off, it's 39 books. Coincidence? And then this right here, I'm going to come back to the technetos, but the card for the tarot, it's so fascinating that this comes out this way because the 43rd card in the tarot is the Seven of Cups. And I had this redone, and I like this because I feel like this Seven of Cups, which means choices and illusions and fantasies, this is like God standing in front of the screen, or spirits, whatever's running you, and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to tune into this today, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do, and this is all of our lives here on those screens, watching you, the eye in the sky watching you, because this is the light game. What do you think's popping out of those televisions? It's a black box. You got to turn it on, and then it's light, and now it's the light game. That's Pandora's box, poltergeist, et cetera, et cetera. But going back to this technetos. Oh boy, what a humdinger this was, because 43 is the big marker here. And then the average atomic mass is 98, which that combination of numbers is like, wow, because the 9 is the repeater of the 8. The 8 is the infinity symbol, and that's the sine wave, which is what we're in. We're stuck in that. And the 9 just keeps repeating it, repeating it, repeating it, repeating it. Okay? That's what the 98 means. Reduces down to the number 8. That's what that means. And then, when you add up the protons, neutrons, and electrons of these, 43 protons, and then the atomic mass, the isotope 98, 43 plus 98, 141, which is a lineage of pi, 3.141, that pi. And now you get into this element called praseodymium, the 59th book in the Bible. The icon for the Royal Society of Chemistry chosen for this element is the prison bars. It's Gemini. Gemini is 19, Master is 19. Okay? Gemini, the two twins, you and your doppelganger. How about that? It's a technique found from the Holy Bible, and it leads into this, folks, the prison. I first released this in my contract with God, exclusively on Patreon. You can spell this word out, prison. And let me tell you right now, this was a massive clue. The prison. Okay? The prison. This is why you have 59 beads in the rosary in Catholicism. You think that's an accident? No. Because of the Holy Bible through alchemy, which means artificial. And it was, the subtleties, the discovery date of this element, 1937. 1937, you can find those in the string of pi. 19 is found at the 37th decimal digit of the 3.141 pi. I showed that the 193746. Haven't used that in a very long time, but it seems like that's the loop in the string of 3.141 pi. 46 being tied to God's kingdom through the Greek numerology. Okay, 193746. 19 being the sun, 37 being the eye in the sky, 46 being man. Go check it out. But it comes to this right here, ladies and gentlemen, right on the left-hand side and the right-hand side on the bottom of your screen. Those are the original spellings for Genesis, which is the first book of the Old Testament, and then Revelation. Okay. And there's variances of this. You have the Revelation of John, if you want to go that route, but Revelation through the Greek. So I have the original Greek, the original Hebrew. And what do you see here? What numbers he getting there? Well, it's freaking pi, folks. 3.141. There's the 141. There's the pi symbol right there. And there's the 59 rosary beads in Catholicism. That's a lot. Some people wear those around. You ain't going to see me wearing that. The contract with God is 59. The game of life is 59. And it's tied right to the Holy Bible, right? What do you think you're in, folks? Some of you don't want to be here anymore. So let's break this down a little bit more. Are we having fun yet? I'm just getting warmed up. Genesis and Revelation, the two books that keep it all together. Okay, it's interesting. Book 1, book 66. If you bring the 1 and the 66 together, you get 166, and that's tied to the word tetragrammaton in the English A through Z cipher. How about that? The God of the Bible, tetragrammaton, right? Meaning the four, the cube. But it is yin-yang. This entire book, it's the light game. It's yin-yang. And it's pi because of the expressions of Genesis and Revelation 13 and 41. And that's going to lead to pi. And pi is the prison. Pi is the 16th or 17th letter of the Greek alphabet. 16 and 17 is 33. 17 being the archaic, 16 being the modern. 17 is the star card. 17 is the 7th prime number. 7 is the 4th prime number, all the way down to the blood types. All right. Mankind is being used, ladies and gentlemen. If you become aware of the code, well, it changes a little bit of things. But let's measure 66 digits into the string of the prison lineage of pi, 3.141. And when you add up all those 66 digits, not including the 3, now there's several ways to do this. So if you add this here, you're going to get 321. But there's several ways to look beyond the decimal, and we have 66 digits and we get a total of 318. What's 318? Permutation of 138. Permutation of the Phoenix event. So the book of the Bible, the books of the Bible, 1 through 66, this is 66 digits. And when it comes to the end of that, there's that 138 tied to Shiva, tied to Jesus, tied to the destroyer. The 318, the 138, the 183. All these number permutations. And then you get this right here. We did the word prison, spelling it out, and I have a decode coming out on this, Son of God. You can spell that out. I know some of you are going to be like, oh, you didn't put the O in there. Well, you go ahead and add the O in there and you can do your own calculations. You're going to see some merits coming out of that. But when you do the numerology of these elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 being tied to the word baby, 6 being tied to carbon, 6 being tied to the Lover's card in the tarot, 6 being tied to the house of Virgo, the Virgin. This is all tied to you being the Son of God. Okay, the sons and daughters of God, and it's the 183. Tied to the total 66 digits past the 3 point of the prison lineage of pi. This is why Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, is 31 degrees latitude north, 35 degrees latitude east, because 31 and 35 is 66. It's all tied together. It's so magical, actually, the numbering system. It's so profound how just prophetic the mathematical equations are. But 183 is tied to this element right here called tungsten. Tungsten, they used to put it in filaments for light bulbs. This is a so below of the sun. Okay? The light bulb is a fractal down. It's a Mandelbrot set down of the natural, of the ways of the sun. Okay? We need electricity to power up that light bulb, so you have the L, the electric, for a different story. But tungsten is called wolfram. That's why it has the big W on there. The W is tied to the sun, the patterns of the sun. Check out my Superstar Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Some of the most important decodes you could probably watch. And this is the average atomic mass for tungsten, 183.84, 74 protons. Okay, so the 74 is massive. The mirror of the 47. All right, the mirror of the 47, not by accident. And then if we, I take that back. This is 66 digits added up. Excuse me. These are 66 digits. And then this is 66 digits without the 3 point. So my mistake on that. So I stand corrected. So that's why you have the 7 on the end here. So there's several ways to look at this. And when you add up 66 digits after the decimal, you get that 322. Now remember, 322 is March 22nd, which is the time when the sun is directly overhead of the equator, giving its light to both the northern and southern hemispheres, doing the yin yang, perfectly doing the yin yang. Everybody gets the same amount of light. Everybody gets the same amount of nighttime. There's that 322. So now you have a better understanding of how all these numbers are tied together. Okay, we have 322 here with 66 digits after the decimal, and then we have 66 total digits, including the 3 point, and we leave the 7 off the back end. So we have that 318 tied to the Son of God, and then tied to 322, March 22nd, and of course you know what organization that's tied to. Now let's get into the authors of the books. Genesis is credited to the mighty Moses. Starts with the letter M. It's just hilarious. And then Revelation is, of course, John the Baptist. And you have a 12. You have the Hangman here. You have Pisces here. Of course, this book seemingly came out during the age of Pisces. Interesting, right? The Old Testament, even if the Dead Sea Scrolls, still, if you go back and do the time frames, seemingly it was during the age of Pisces, Pisces being that 12th sign, right? Classically, the way it's lined up. And this book comes out, Moses is 12, the author of Genesis, and, the Torah. I mean, come on, folks. You can see the scripted reality, and then John being the 30, Demiurge is 30, Jehovah equals 30. The revelation, the unveiling. Okay, the unveiling, and you can see the 33 there. Okay, not an accident. But when you add up the 30 and the 12 from these two authors, remember, these books are important because it's the first book and the last book. Everything in the middle is sandwiched in between, but it's held in by the front and the back. Genesis is the beginning, the seed. Revelation is the unveiling, the end. And then the beginning starts all over again. But it's going to give you that number 42. 30 plus 12 is 42. Molybdenum, Moses. Molybdenum has several atomic isotopes. One of them is 96. There's the yin-yang, right? And then you get into what's called the lake of fire. Molybdenum has 33 known isotopes total. Coincidence? Tied right to the crucifixion date of the Christ, the age, that story. And it's tied to the lake of fire. Reincarnation is 42. Crucifixion equals 42. That's why 42 is so big. So very, very big, that number. And the mirror of 42 is 24, and Jesus in the original Greek spelling is 24. Coincidence? No, it's not. You're having a Jesus Christ superstar experience from this book. Whether you believe it or not, there'll be the Upanishads, the ancient texts of Shinto, the Quran, that these other amazing books, like these books all have their story, and they're all kind of similar in a way. They're all very, very similar in a way. So let's get into some cards of illumination and talk about the solar spread number 42. Since Moses and John equal 42 with their name, Numerology, which are the authors of Genesis and Revelation. And it's so big. The 42 being tied to the lake of fire, being tied to reincarnation and crucifixion. And you can see space number 42, because we look at this like a bingo chart. 42, what's sitting in the space number 42? The two of hearts. Two of hearts beat as one. There's a song called that, Two of Hearts. I can't sing, really, that song, but maybe you know that song. You should probably go check that out if you resonate with that. But there it is. This means contracts, companionship. This is your doppelganger, okay? This card says so much, and there on the card is the Roman numeral number 2. What does that look like right there? Doesn't that look like the praseodymium element that I showed earlier? Freaking dead on. That's exactly what it is. 2 is duality, yin yang, folks. Okay, this is the contract, the partnership here, and it sits. The reason why I have the devil here, because it sits in the lineages of Neptune and Venus, and Venus is all about screwing and humping and procreating and love. And then you have the pitchfork of Neptune, which has got the devil's pitchfork there. Pretty easy to see this, right? The sea monster called Neptune. Yada, yada, yada. I've already talked about that. So this comes down to this 42. As you know, this is, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Life, Universe, Everything. Why was this chosen by Douglas Noel Adams? You could see numerology-wise that when we say 3-3, which is what John and Moses break down to from a single-digit perspective, that equals the number 42. Coincidence? Look at these synchronicities galore. And then you have Douglas Noel Adams, the first man. The first man. His last name. Now, some people say, well, he changed it. What would be the point? And if you can't verify that, then you're just assuming, and, let's just go with, the guy's a writer, man. Douglas Noel Adams. And there you go, the connecting point to Genesis and Revelation and the 42. It's so fascinating. It's so very fascinating. It really, really is. And then you bring Douglas Noel Adams and his book series, which was made into a BBC series on on television. It's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's the number 108. That's going to be tied to the element silver. Silver is the silver screen because that's what you're on. That's why Hollywood is the silver screen. And then this guy, Carl. Who's this dude? Why does he have a 108 which matches the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Because Carl was responsible for discovering praseodymium. That's right. Carl was responsible for discovering praseodymium, which is, there's that too. See, I go right back up here. There it is on that card, sitting in space 42. Not an accident, ladies and gentlemen. Not in the least bit. And this is the one that starts off prison. 59, rosary beads in Catholicism. 59 is tied to the game of life, contract with God, forbidden fruit. 50, all 59. 5 and 9, when you reduce it down, it's going to be the 5. 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 senses. And there's the full spell out, as I've already showed, the prison. And there's the 2. There's the 2 of cups. Okay. Gemini, Castor and Pollux. And what sits in the sign of Gemini? Sirius. Sirius is inside at 20 degrees for everybody in the zodiac sign Gemini. Coincidence? No. And what is pi? 3.14. Gemini is the 3rd zodiac sign. Across the way is the 9th zodiac sign, which is Jupiter. Zeus, who just so happens to have an all-seeing eye on it as well. So you have Sirius, the all-seeing eye, Jupiter have the all-seeing eye, the great red spot. Coincidence? No, not at all. And it leads to this, ladies and gentlemen. So you're wondering, like, okay, where do we go with this? And how does this tie into our reality? It's tied into the hexahedron. See, because this is the prison. I've already covered this is the T and the Y, and that's 45, and that's Pandora's box. You add up all these numbers, you're going to get 45. 1 plus 2 plus 3, it's 45. Pandora's box equals 45. But this is called, in sacred geometry, it's called the hexahedron. And hexahedron is 44. We look to the 44 in the string of the golden ratio, tied to nature and light, the Fibonacci sequence. We go 59 digits after the decimal. We add them all up. We get 286. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pandora's box. This is Pandora's box unfolded. And this is theology, which is tied to Pandora's box. Okay. So if you wrap yourself up with this and you wrap yourself up with this, you're going to be here and stuck in the cube. You're in the cube. And the 44 hexahedron for the numerology of it is located at the 58th and 59th decimal digit, or 59 and 60 if you include the 1 point. When you add it up, you get 286. Why is this a big deal? Because it's tied right to our blood types. The 8 known blood types, you're going to be one of these. Rh factor or not, you are going to be O, A, B, or AB. There are 4 blood types, but when you add the negative and positive, you get 8. Notice there's 74 letters. Remember what the 74 was tied to? Wolfram, tungsten. Okay, these are big humdingers. 286 tied to the hexahedron. This is why in Matthew 26 verses 26, Matthew 26 verses 27, that ritual says, drink my blood, eat my body. No thanks. Drink my blood. Drink. This means my blood. Yeah, well, now you know why. Because when you partake in that ritual, you're going to be put right back into the box. You ain't going to be getting taken out of, if this is even a thing. So I'm going to just digress and tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying this is true. What I'm telling you is true. I'm saying it's true for me. You should take it into consideration since you're sitting here watching. But how are you going to refute the numbers that are showing out here when I've showed this time in and time again, and then you know the story, and that's tied right to our blood types. So do you want to continue to do that ritual, drinking the blood, eating the wafers, pledging, wearing this symbol, knowing that it's wrapped up and it's tied up into this cute little box, squaring the circle? Okay, and you got a hex. That's why it's called the hexahedron. The hex is on you. Okay, then you have the hexagon as well, which is the 6-sided polygonal. 6, and this is 4-sided. 6 and 4 is gadolinium in the game of life, and the squares on a chessboard, and 64 possible codes of our DNA, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so let's move a little bit more into some alchemy. We're going to get into the Genesis and Revelation. We're going to tie in the isotopes for Genesis, the seed. This also could be aluminium, right? Which is tied to the great beast above. But if we use the protons and neutrons, we have carbon, and there is carbon 12 and there's a carbon 13. This is tied to Ken and Barbie, because Ken equals 13 and Barbie equals 12. Or Ken equals 12 and Barbie equals 13, one or the other. All right, I covered that in my Barbie Decoded. And then you have Revelation being the 41st outcome for numerology. That's tied to this element right here called potassium. It's also going to be tied to niobium. Potassium having that letter K. The K is kalium. That's the Latin I. That's why they have a big K on there. And this is the 19th element on the periodic table. 19 is tied to game master, the master. Gemini is 19, master is 19, battery is 19. And you can see when you convert these two abbreviations for carbon and potassium, the C and the K, it's the 3 and the 11 in the English A through Z. C being the third letter, K being the 11th. Why is this a big deal? When you bring the 3, 11 and you marry those together, you get a prime number. You see, you look at as many layers as you can to observe this reality, and it's the 64th prime number. I already kind of covered the 64. And 64 is tied to this element right here called gadolinium. It's also going to be tied to zinc, the 30th element, which is tied to demiurge. Zinc has an atomic isotope of 64, but 64 protons for gadolinium. And you take gadolinium and you get the GD there. It's God. Gadolinium equals 35 in numerology. Simulation equals 35 in numerology. 64 squares on a chessboard. 64 possible codons in our DNA. We're made up of 20% carbon. Potassium is an essential element for our bodies. If you take 64 and you add 158, you're going to get 222. Go check out my 222 Decoded. Tied to radon, the rising of the sun. Straight up. Okay, go check it out. And it's also tied to Adam and Eve. So this is where we get into, this story, the supposed first man and first woman. And again, it doesn't matter if it was real. It's written in the text of the story. And enough people believe in it, and that's how magic works. And the story becomes alive. But when you do the numerology of carbon and kalium, so I have to get the big K on there, you get 37. I in the sky is 37, but it's interesting because Adam and Eve through the original Hebrew spelling equals 37. How about that? Another coincidence. 37. Okay. So Adam and Eve being 37 tied to Genesis and Revelation. The light game. Okay. The light game. And it kind of really comes down to this. My last couple slides. We bring in some cards of illumination, typical deck of playing cards, 52 cards, 52 weeks, 4 suits, 4 seasons, 13 cards per suit, 13 weeks per season. The 13th card in the cards of illumination is the King of Hearts, the King of Love, Genesis, the seed, starting the game off. This is why this is such a powerful number. It's also tied to the death card in the major arcana. This means life and death, right? Genesis, spiritual death, birth of the matter. And then you have Revelation being tied to the 2 of spades, which is card 41. And when you do the numerology of these two, you get 102, which is tied to the 45th element called rhodium. This is where you get your RH factors in the blood. 45 is going to be tied to what? Pandora's box. How many more layers do we need to continue to see how this all works here, this biblical art? It's fascinating. And look at the numbering outcome. Pandora's is 31, box is 14. It's a permutation of Genesis and Revelation. Because that's what the Bible's a light game, but this is why Greek mythology has it saying everything, because Greek mythology is telling you that Pandora's box was open. This is the shit show. This is the storm. This is pain and suffering. And this is a creation of yin yang. This is where you're going to get your blood types. This is going to round up to 103. 103 is the 27th prime number. And if you know what 27 means, so it's tied to the word vampire. The word currency is 27. The word thalamus is 27. Ensof is 27. Okay, tied to Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism. And and Greek mythology has its say here, as it's Pandora's box. Fallen angels equals 45. It's just, you can continue to see these things when you add on more layers. And again, just trying to keep it in the family of Chaldean. I know, I'm using these because these are the original languages of where these books came from. So what did you see, folks? Would love to hear what you as a decoder saw during this presentation. Keep your comments coming. Keep them cordial, though. Again, it's all about love in here. Again, I will continually say that these are my opinions and truths. I'm asking you to consider these opinions and truths, and then you got to make the truth your own. You may have seen some different things. You may have observed different things that I do. Right, so I really welcome your comments. Keep them coming. A lot of you have great insights. A lot of you have great observations, and you throw them out. And I get inspired by some of these things. So keep your comments coming. Just keep them cordial. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for today. My name is Logan. Decode Your Reality. Until next time, we will see you.